Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It is Tuesday, April the 28th. I'm Andrew Gagan. Well, the local market is set to open lower with ASX futures down around 0.7%. Global equity markets began the week mostly lower, with investors weighing up a raft of central bank meetings and stalled peace talks between the US and Iran. On Wall Street, however, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq managed to modest gains to extend their record highs as investors geared up for a big week in earnings results. The S&P 500 is now up more than 100% since the bull market began in October 2022. And analysts now see aggregate S&P earnings growth of 16.1% year on year. Verizon advanced following the telco's annual forecast hike due to stronger than expected subscriber adds. Domino Pizza shares slid after the food delivery chain forecast softer growth in annual US and international same-store sales as strained consumer sentiment and fierce competition weighed on demand. Nvidia extended the prior session's surge and reclaimed a market valuation of more than $5 trillion, while Apple and Amazon each slid ahead of their results this week, and Atlassian also fell. Microsoft shares fell in early trade before recovering, with it no longer having exclusive access to OpenAI's models and products, which will allow the ChatGPT maker to sell tech across rival cloud platforms. Other top gainers were SanDisk, Micron Technology, and Albemarle. Well, President Trump discussed a new Iranian proposal on resolving the war with his top national security aides as the conflict remains in a stalemate. Iranian sources reveal the regime's latest proposal, which would set aside discussion of Iran's nuclear program until the war is ended and disputes over shipping from the Gulf are resolved. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he thought Iran was trying to buy more time, saying we can't let them get away with it. Meanwhile, in Washington this week, Federal Reserve policymakers will gather in what may be Jerome Powell's last meeting as head of the US Central Bank. While interest rates are expected to remain on hold, the Policy Committee will have to decide if it's time to acknowledge the possibility of hiking borrowing costs if inflation continues to accelerate, with Fed Governor Christopher Waller saying, the longer energy prices remain elevated and the strait is constrained, the greater the chances that higher inflation gets embedded across a wide variety of goods and services. Various supply chain effects start to emerge and real activity and employment start to slow. Well, US Treasuries have eased after softer than expected front-end auctions. The US 2-year Treasury yield rose to 3.81%, the 10-year at 4.35%. Australian 3-year government bond yields rose to 4.71% and the 10-year up to 5.05%. US dollar index down slightly on the day. The Aussie is trading at 71.9 US cents. Oil prices have surged to a 2-week high as peace talks between the US and Iran stalled and shipments through the Strait of Hormuz remain limited, keeping global oil supplies tight. Brent futures rising 3% to around $108 a barrel. Gold has fallen around 0.5% to $4,680 an ounce. And a Reuters poll of gold analysts has forecast a median price of $4,916 an ounce for 2026. Copper was little changed, as was iron ore, which is at $109 a tonne. And Bitcoin has fallen back to around $77,000. Well, there's no major data either locally or globally today. And on the corporate front, quarterly updates are expected from Aeris Resources, Coronado Resources, Karoon, Pantoro Gold, and Whitehaven Coal. That is your day ahead. See you again tomorrow.